I stepped onto my porch and my stomach dropped. The stone bridge was blocked off with fresh concrete barriers, like somebody had declared my driveway a crime scene. My mom had dialysis that morning, and the ambulance couldn't get in. That was the moment I realized the Homeowners Association wasn't annoying anymore, it was dangerous. My name's Ethan Miller, and I've lived on this land long before anybody called the hills exclusive. 15 acres of apple trees, a small farmhouse, a barn that still smells like hay and old tools. It's not fancy, but it's mine. And that bridge, Old Creek Crossing. It's the only way in or out, a chunk of stubborn stone that's been holding up longer than most of those mansions have existed. 10 years ago, the quiet around me got bought. One by one, the fields turned into Summit Ridge estates, 40-something giant homes, polished lawns, black SUVs, and people who wave with 2 fingers like they're afraid dirt might jump on them. At first, I kept my head down, sold my apples at the weekend market, and let them pretend I didn't exist. Then the HOA showed up like a second government. It started with letters, neat little envelopes, crisp paper, bold headers, and that tone that says, "We're being polite because we're confident you'll obey." Concern about odor, concern about noise, concern about property values, always concern, never facts. And every letter had the same name at the bottom, Patricia Vance. Trish, if you're on her good side. Mrs. Vance, if you're not. She was the kind of woman who smiled without warmth, who wore tennis white like a uniform, who spoke in that sugary clipped way that meant she was already writing your punishment in her head. The first time I met her, she marched down to the bridge in designer sunglasses and pointed at my pickup like it offended her personally. "You can't have commercial traffic coming through Summit Ridge," she said, palms open like she was teaching a toddler. "It's my driveway," I told her. She tilted her head. "It's our community access, and we're very protective of it." That word protective became her excuse for everything. Within a month, Trish was standing at the bridge with her phone out filming my deliveries like I was running a cartel out of apple crates. She complained about my fertilizer. She complained about my workers' trucks. She even complained about my porch light being too warm because apparently warm light didn't match Summit Ridge's aesthetic. One morning I fired up my tractor at 7, not dawn, not midnight, 7, and by lunch I had an email from the HOA board. Multiple homeowners reported disruptive mechanical activity. Multiple homeowners. Sure, I tried the reasonable route because I'm not built for drama. I emailed back, offered to chip in for maintenance on the bridge, even offered to limit deliveries to certain hours. I figured, give a little, get a little peace. Trish replied in under 10 minutes. "Ethan," she wrote, "this isn't about money. It's about what's best for the community." When someone says the community like that, like it's a weapon, you learn fast you're not part of it. A week later, I woke up to orange cones and concrete barriers across Old Creek Crossing. No warning, no meeting, no posted notice from the county. Just a hard blockade and a laminated sign zip-tied to the fence. Bridge closed, private roadway, HOA authority. I stood there in my boots, coffee going cold in my hand, staring at it like it might move if I stared hard enough. My mom Rose called from inside the house. "Ethan, are we leaving soon?" I walked back in and I didn't even know what to say. My daughter Mia was halfway down the stairs with her backpack already annoyed because teenagers are always annoyed, and then she saw my face and stopped. "Dad," she said. I drove down to the barrier anyway because denial is a powerful thing. Trish was already there. Of course, she was talking to 2 guys in reflective vests like she'd hired them herself. I got out and said, "Move it." Trish didn't even flinch. "The bridge is unsafe," she said, like she'd personally inspected the stone with a stethoscope. "We're preventing liability." "Unsafe for who?" I asked. "It's been here 60 years. She sighed, slow, theatrical. "Ethan, please don't make this difficult." I looked at the men. "Who told you to do this?" One of them glanced at Trish, then at me, and mumbled, "We were contracted by Summit Ridge." That was the first time I heard it out loud. Not the county, not the state, not emergency repairs. Summit Ridge. The neighborhood. The HOA. My phone buzzed while I was still standing there. An email 14 pages as a PDF from a law firm called Sterling & Stone. The subject line was basically a threat in a suit, notice of unauthorized use and demand to cease access. They gave me 10 days to prove I had the right to use the bridge. The same bridge my family had used longer than Trish had been alive. They claimed my commercial activity had damaged the crossing. They claimed I was decreasing property values. They claimed somehow that the HOA could terminate access if I didn't comply. That night my kitchen turned into a war room. Laura sat at the table flipping through the PDF with that tight look nurses get when they're trying not to panic. Mia hovered in the doorway pretending she wasn't listening while she absolutely was. My mom sat in her recliner quiet like she didn't want to be the reason we were trapped. I called the dialysis center, explained what happened, got rescheduled, but the bigger problem wasn't the appointment. It was the reality I couldn't ignore anymore. They could cut me off any day they felt like it. And the next few days they made sure I understood who was in charge. Bright LED floodlights appeared on the Summit Ridge side, angled just right, so my bedroom never got fully dark. Security lighting, they called it. A new camera popped up on a post facing my driveway, red light blinking like a taunt. The HOA sent a notice that my Apple stand sign by the road was non-compliant, even though it had been there forever. Then the inspection started. County truck one day, fire marshal the next, environmental officer after that. Nobody accused me of anything directly, but the timing was too clean. It felt like someone had a checklist and my address was at the top. The lowest point wasn't dramatic, no screaming, no movie soundtrack. It was me sitting in my truck outside the barn, staring at my bank app. I'd just gotten off the phone with a lawyer who talked in careful sentences and casually mentioned a retainer number that made my throat tighten. I did the math the way real people do. Bills fuel my mom's care, Mia's school stuff, the orchard expenses. And for the first time I thought plain and ugly. What if they're counting on me running out of money before I ever get a chance to fight? Not some poetic am I the villain moment, just that cold, practical fear. The kind that makes your hands feel numb on the steering wheel. That's when I decided if I was going down, I wasn't going down quietly. I drove to the county records office the next morning and asked for everything tied to my parcel and that bridge. The clerk, older guy, kind eyes, seen 1,000 disputes, pointed me toward a dusty index like it was an old map to buried treasure. I spent hours flipping through scans, deeds, easements, survey drawings. And then I found it. A recorded easement from 1962, plain language, stamped, filed, granting my property permanent access across Old Creek Crossing for residential and agricultural use. The bridge wasn't some casual neighborhood perk. It was a legal right attached to the land. I photocopied it like my life depended on it because, honestly, it kind of did. That's when I called Martha Lewis. Martha wasn't the soft-voiced, gentle lawyer type. She was sharp, direct, and when I told her an HOA blocked the only access road to a home with a medical patient inside, she went quiet for half a second, then said, "Oh, they really picked the wrong guy." Within 48 hours, Martha filed for an emergency injunction. She also filed requests I didn't even know existed, demand letters for board minutes, maintenance budgets, contractor invoices. She didn't just want the bridge opened. She wanted to know why Trish was so confident she could treat me like a problem to remove. And while the legal paperwork started moving, life kept getting uglier. One night I walked out to my truck and saw the tire flat, not a slow leak, not a nail, a clean slash. My chest went hot, then cold. I checked my cameras, hands shaking just enough to make me mad at myself. At 2:17 a.m., a white Tesla rolled past the edge of my driveway, paused, then kept going. I couldn't see a face. I didn't need to. Then came Mrs. Higgins. She lived in Summit Ridge, one of the few people there who'd actually asked me about my orchard instead of complaining about it. She showed up at my fence line in a cardigan and sensible shoes, looking like she'd rehearsed courage in the mirror. "I shouldn't be here," she said, voice low, "but I'm tired of watching this." She handed me a small flash drive. "I recorded a board meeting," she said. "Trish thought everyone was on mute. She talked too much." Martha and I listened to it in her office the next day. There was Trish's voice, crisp and smug, saying, "If we keep pressure on Miller, he'll sell. He has to. And once we own that parcel, Summit Ridge can finally expand without the orchard problem." The room felt still after that. Not because it was shocking, because it confirmed everything. This wasn't about noise or smell or safety. It was about land. The court date came fast because Martha pushed hard, and because apparently judges don't love it when people block emergency access like they're running a private kingdom. The hearing wasn't some glamorous courtroom scene. It was fluorescent lights, tired faces, and Trish sitting at a table with Sterling and Stone like she was auditioning for control. She stood up when it was her turn and said, "We acted to protect the community from liability." Martha didn't even blink. She slid the 1962 easement across to the judge. Then she played the audio clip, not the whole thing, just the part where Trish said, "Keep pressure and he'll sell." Trish's smile cracked so fast it was almost funny. She jumped up, hands half raised. "That's out of context." Martha cut her off calm as ice. "It's very much in context, Your Honor." Then Martha did something that made Trish actually pale. She introduced a second packet, HOA invoices and contractor payments that didn't match any real bridge work. Security lighting upgrades billed at insane numbers. Maintenance labor with no receipts. Consulting fees with vague descriptions. The judge's eyebrows lifted. "Who approved these?" Trish swallowed. "The board," Martha nodded, "and the board minutes we obtained show those votes never occurred." You could feel the air shift in the room like a door opening to a hallway nobody wanted to walk down. Two people in plain clothes were sitting behind us. I'd noticed them earlier but didn't think much of it. Now one of them stood and quietly spoke to the judge, then stepped toward Trish's table. "Miss Vance," he said, holding up a badge, "we need to speak with you about an ongoing investigation." Trish froze like her brain couldn't load the next line. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering fast, but it didn't matter. The judge granted the injunction on the spot, immediate removal of the barriers, immediate restoration of access, and a referral of the financial discrepancies for further review. Trish opened her mouth again, but no sound came out. The last thing I remember clearly is the scrape of her chair as she stood trying to look outraged, trying to look innocent, trying to look like the person in charge and failing at all three. They escorted her out of that room, not gently, not cruelly, just firmly, like someone finally took the keys away. And as the door shut behind her, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt my lungs work again, because the bridge, my bridge, wasn't a bargaining chip anymore. It was a right on paper in plain English, the kind Trish couldn't bully her way around. Lesson learned. When someone turns the community into a weapon, paper trails beat power trips every time.